Welcome back. Tonight, we're drifting slowly into the extraordinary world of the SCP Foundation, a vast collaborative universe born from the collective imagination of thousands of writers across the globe, where the impossible becomes documented reality and the boundaries between our world and the anomalous blur into shadow. This is a place where ancient gods slumber beneath the earth, where ordinary objects hold terrifying powers, and where a secret organization works tirelessly to maintain the thin veil between normalcy and chaos. Whether you're discovering this universe for the first time, returning to explore its depths once more, or simply letting these stories carry you gently toward sleep, this journey will guide you through the essential fabric of SCP lore, piece by careful piece. Before we begin our descent into the Foundation's archives, feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of deep, immersive storytelling that explores the edges of cosmic horror and human determination. And let me know in the comments what your favorite SCP is, or which aspect of the lore draws you in most deeply. Now, let's begin our quiet exploration. In the beginning, there was the Wiki. The SCP Foundation started in 2007 as a creative writing project on 4chan, where someone posted a creepy image with a clinical description of a hostile statue that moves when you're not looking. That original post, which would eventually become SCP-173, sparked something remarkable. Writers began creating their own anomalous objects, creatures, and phenomena, each documented in the same cold, bureaucratic style. The format was deceptively simple: a clinical containment procedure followed by a description of the anomaly itself, written as though it were an actual classified government document. This collaborative storytelling approach allowed the universe to expand organically, with no single author controlling the narrative. Over the years, thousands of SCPs have been written, deleted, rewritten, and refined by the community, creating one of the internet's most extensive horror mythologies. The Foundation itself exists in the shadows of our world, operating outside governmental control, beyond the reach of conventional authority. Its mission is elegantly summarized in 3 words: secure, contain, protect. Secure the anomaly before it can harm civilians. Contain it using whatever methods prove necessary. Protect humanity from the knowledge that monsters are real, that physics can break, that gods walk among us. The Foundation maintains this veil of normalcy through extensive use of amnestics, memory-erasing drugs administered to civilians who witness anomalous events, through disinformation campaigns, through the careful placement of agents in media and government positions. They operate dozens of sites worldwide, from small outposts to massive underground complexes housing the most dangerous entities known to exist. The organization's structure is deliberately compartmentalized. Researchers at one site might have no idea what's contained at another. This operational security prevents breaches from compromising the entire organization, though it also creates an atmosphere of paranoia and isolation among personnel. Understanding the Foundation requires understanding how they classify anomalies. The object class system provides a quick reference for containment difficulty and danger level, though these classifications can be deceptively simple. Safe class objects are predictable and easy to contain, though this doesn't mean they're harmless. A button that ends the world is safe if it just sits in a locked box and nobody pushes it. Euclid-class objects are unpredictable, requiring more elaborate containment procedures, more observation, more caution. Most sentient anomalies fall into this category because consciousness itself is unpredictable. Keter-class objects are actively hostile to containment, reality-threatening, or both. These are the anomalies that keep researchers awake at night, the ones that could end the world if containment fails. There are other classifications as well. Thaumiel-class objects are the Foundation's most closely guarded secrets, anomalies so useful for containing other anomalies that knowledge of their existence is restricted to the O5 Council. Neutralized objects have lost their anomalous properties or been destroyed. Explained objects have been understood well enough that they no longer qualify as anomalous, though this classification is rare. But the Foundation's story doesn't begin in 2007, or even in the modern era. Within its mythology, the organization traces its roots back centuries, emerging from older secret societies dedicated to containing the supernatural. Some tales speak of Renaissance alchemists cataloging impossible artifacts. Others reference medieval monks documenting demonic incursions. The modern Foundation coalesced in the aftermath of World War II, absorbing various national programs that had experimented with anomalous weaponry and occult forces. This history remains deliberately vague, allowing multiple canons to coexist, contradictions serving as features rather than flaws in a universe that contains multiverses. Now, let us drift back further still, to a time before time, to the cosmic origins that underpin so much of SCP mythology. In the beginning, if such a concept can even apply, there was the void. In various creation myths scattered throughout SCP lore, this primordial nothingness preceded reality itself. From this void emerged entities of immense power, beings that would shape existence according to their conflicting natures. Two of the most significant are Mekhane and Yaldabaoth, divine forces locked in eternal opposition. Mekhane, the broken god, represents order, machinery, logic, and cold perfection. Yaldabaoth represents chaos, flesh, instinct, and uncontrolled growth. Their conflict forms the basis for two of the Foundation's most dangerous groups of interest: the Church of the Broken God, which seeks to rebuild Mekhane from scattered fragments, and the Sarkic cults, which worship Yaldabaoth through grotesque biological manipulation. The war between these gods occurred in prehistory, a reality-shattering conflict that ended when Mekhane sacrificed itself, shattering into countless pieces to imprison Yaldabaoth deep beneath the earth. This mythological event explains countless anomalies throughout SCP lore. Fragments of Mekhane became powerful mechanical artifacts, sentient machines, and the sacred relics of the broken god's church. Yaldabaoth's imprisoned essence spawns flesh-based horrors, grants Sarkic cultists their reality-warping biological abilities, and periodically threatens to break free and consume all life. The Foundation contains artifacts from both traditions, carefully preventing either religion from gathering enough power to resurrect their deity. Then there is the Scarlet King, perhaps the most terrifying entity in SCP mythology. Where Mekhane and Yaldabaoth represent opposing cosmic principles, the Scarlet King embodies pure destruction, an entity that predates creation itself and seeks only to destroy everything that exists. He cannot be contained because he exists partially outside reality. He cannot be killed because he is the concept of ending given form. The Scarlet King has fathered numerous offspring throughout history, each representing an apocalyptic threat. SCP-231, one of the Foundation's most ethically disturbing containments, involves preventing one such child from being born through procedures so horrific they're entirely redacted from the documentation. The Scarlet King's influence extends through multiple dimensions and timelines. Cults worship him across the world, drawn to his promise of absolute annihilation. The children of the Scarlet King, a group of interest, actively worked to bring about his full manifestation, which would trigger an XK-class end-of-the-world scenario. Ancient human civilizations intersected with these cosmic forces in ways that shaped the modern anomalous landscape. The Daevites, an ancient civilization that existed somewhere around Central Asia, built an empire on blood sacrifice and slavery, with technology and magic indistinguishable from each other. They worshipped the Scarlet King, channeling his destructive power to conquer vast territories. The Daevite civilization was supposedly destroyed around the 2nd century BCE, though evidence suggests remnants survived in hidden enclaves. SCP-140, a book that retroactively extends Daevite history each time someone reads it with blood nearby, represents one of the Foundation's most dangerous containment challenges. Each addition to the book literally alters reality, creating new archaeological evidence of extended Daevite survival, bringing this nightmare civilization closer to the present day. The Sarkic cults emerged as a rebellion against Daevite oppression. Grand Karcist Ion, a slave who gained immense biological manipulation powers from Yaldabaoth, led an uprising that shattered the Daevite Empire. But Ion's cure proved as terrible as the disease. Sarkicism, the religion he founded, practices ritual cannibalism, body modification through flesh crafting, and the pursuit of apotheosis through merging with Yaldabaoth's essence. Modern Sarkic cults exist in two main branches. The Proto-Sarkic practice traditional rituals in isolated villages, living in harmony with their grotesque modifications. The Neo-Sarkic are wealthy elites who use their powers for hedonistic pleasure and social manipulation, hiding their true nature behind corporate facades. The Foundation monitors both branches carefully, as their flesh-crafting abilities can create biological weapons of unprecedented horror. In opposition to the Sarkics stand the various sects of the Church of the Broken God. These mechanist religions believe that Mekhane's sacrifice was humanity's salvation, and that reconstructing the broken God will bring about a new age of enlightenment. The Church has several major denominations. The Broken Church, the oldest sect, seeks Mekhane's fragments through religious devotion and careful archaeology. The Church of Maxwellism is a modern interpretation that views Mekhane as divine information, seeking to rebuild their God through artificial intelligence and the internet. The Cogwork Orthodox Church takes a more aggressive approach, forcibly converting followers through invasive mechanical augmentation. Each sect possesses dangerous anomalous technology derived from Mekhane's fragments, from impossible perpetual motion machines to devices that can rewrite the laws of physics in localized areas. These cosmic forces and ancient civilizations set the stage for the modern anomalous world. But let us now turn our attention to specific entities, the individual SCPs that populate the Foundation's endless archives. We'll begin with some of the most iconic and frequently discussed anomalies, each representing different aspects of the horror and wonder that defines this universe. SCP-173, the original, the sculpture that started everything, remains one of the most elegantly terrifying concepts in the database. It appears to be a crude statue made of concrete and rebar, standing roughly 6 feet tall, vaguely humanoid. The anomaly is simple and absolute. It cannot move while being directly observed, but moves with lethal speed the instant no one is looking. It kills by snapping necks or strangling, leaving behind a combination of feces and blood. Containment requires at least 3 personnel at all times, with mandatory blinking rotation to ensure continuous observation. The implication is what makes SCP-173 so effective. It's not that the statue only moves when unobserved. It's that it only can move when unobserved, as though the act of observation itself constrains it within our physical laws. This suggests something deeply unsettling about the nature of reality in the SCP universe, that consciousness and observation play fundamental roles in determining what is possible. SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile, represents the Foundation's most frustrating containment challenge. It's a massive, vaguely reptilian entity with immense regenerative abilities and a burning hatred for all life. The Foundation has attempted to terminate 682 hundreds of times, using everything from acid baths to nuclear weapons, and it has survived everything, often adapting to become resistant to whatever method was used. After being exposed to extreme heat, it develops heat-resistant scales. After exposure to biological weapons, it becomes immune to disease. The Foundation has even attempted to use other SCPs to destroy it. They threw it into a chamber with SCP-173, hoping the statue would kill it. But 682 simply developed eyes covering its entire body so it could observe 173 from every angle simultaneously. They exposed it to SCP-053, a little girl whose presence causes irrational violence in everyone who sees her, hoping 682's hatred would compel it to attack and trigger 053's kill-on-touch defense. Instead, 682 played with her gently, the only being it has ever shown affection toward, which somehow makes it even more disturbing. The reptile's intelligence varies by tale, sometimes appearing as a mindless killing machine, other times demonstrating sophisticated reasoning and even speech. In one interview log, it described humanity as disgusting and expressed a desire to eradicate all life because the very concept of biological existence offends it. This philosophical dimension adds depth to what could be a simple monster. SCP-682 isn't just dangerous because it's unkillable. It's dangerous because it's unkillable, intelligent, and fundamentally opposed to the existence of life itself. Some theories within the lore suggest it's actually the child of the Scarlet King, which would explain both its immortality and its genocidal hatred. SCP-0096, the Shy Guy, operates on a simple but horrifying principle. It appears as a pale, emaciated humanoid with disproportionately long arms. Most of the time, it sits docile, covering its face. But if anyone sees its face, whether in person, in a photograph, or even in a reflection, 096 enters a rage state. It will track down the person who saw its face, no matter where they are, no matter what obstacles stand in the way. It has crossed oceans, torn through fortified bunkers, and moved at speeds exceeding hundreds of miles per hour. When it reaches its target, it kills and consumes them, leaving no trace. Then it returns to its docile state. The implication is terrifying. A single glance, even accidental, even unknowing, marks you for death. 4 pixels of its face in the corner of a photograph you barely noticed. A glimpse in a mirror's reflection. These small moments become death sentences. The Foundation's containment of 096 is particularly challenging because its face cannot be viewed, which means identifying and destroying all images of it requires extensive resources. In one tale, a picture of 096 was visible in the background of a photograph taken by a hiker. The Foundation had to track down every copy of that image across social media, in cloud storage, in physical prints, all while preventing anyone else from seeing it. The story raises questions about containment in the digital age, where information replicates infinitely and perfect information, suppression becomes virtually impossible. SCP-106, the Old Man, also known as Uncle Larry in some older terminology, is a humanoid entity that appears as a rotting, elderly figure. It can phase through solid matter, leaving behind a black, corrosive substance. When it touches a victim, it pulls them into a pocket dimension of its own creation, a hellish maze where it tortures victims for what seems like years from their perspective before releasing them, broken and often dying. The pocket dimension itself is inconsistent, sometimes appearing as endless concrete corridors, other times as impossible geometries or landscapes that defy description. Victims who escape report that time moves differently inside, that the Old Man toys with them, that the experience is specifically tailored to their personal fears. Containment of 106 requires a particularly dark method. The Foundation uses a live human bait, typically a D-class personnel, to lure it back into containment when it breaches. The bait is subjected to extreme pain, breaking bones systematically, because 106 is drawn to suffering. This containment procedure exemplifies the ethical compromises the Foundation makes in the name of protecting humanity. The suffering of one person, deliberately inflicted, to contain an entity that would torture countless others if left free. These moral calculations appear throughout SCP lore, raising uncomfortable questions about utilitarianism and the price of security. Let's shift now to anomalies that bend or break reality itself. Entities that challenge our understanding of what is possible. SCP-3812 is perhaps the most powerful reality bender in the entire database, a being that constantly ascends through narrative layers, becoming more powerful with each passing moment. It began as Sam Howell, a human being, but an anomalous event caused him to rise through metaphysical strata, gradually becoming aware that he exists within a fictional narrative. SCP-3812 can alter reality through thought, erasing things from existence or rewriting history. But the entity is also suffering from severe schizophrenia, hearing voices, unable to distinguish between reality and delusion. This combination makes it extraordinarily dangerous, as its subconscious reality alterations occur constantly, unpredictably. The Foundation cannot contain it in any meaningful sense. They simply monitor its position and pray it doesn't decide to erase them from existence. The truly disturbing aspect of 3812 is its awareness of the fourth wall. It knows it was written. It knows about the SCP Wiki. It knows about us, the readers, and it's ascending toward our level of reality, becoming more real than the fiction that spawned it. SCP-2317 presents a different kind of reality-ending threat. It's a door, Victorian in style, that leads to a pocket dimension containing an immense, chained entity. The chains, forged in ancient times through means unknown, are slowly degrading. When they fail completely, the entity will break free and destroy reality. The Foundation's containment procedures for 2317 include an elaborate ritual called Procedure 220 Calabasas, where a D-class personnel performs a complicated ceremony that supposedly repairs the chains. The entire ritual is a lie. The chains cannot be repaired. They will fail. The entity will break free. Procedure 220 Calabasas exists purely to give Foundation personnel hope, to prevent them from falling into despair at the inevitability of the apocalypse. This reveals another dimension of the Foundation's operations: psychological containment. Sometimes the organization contains not just anomalies, but the knowledge of anomalies, managing information to maintain operational effectiveness even when the truth is unbearable. SCP-001 deserves special attention, though discussing it requires understanding the unique approach the Foundation takes to its documentation. There is no single, canonical SCP-001. Instead, there are multiple SCP-001 proposals, each presenting a different origin story for the Foundation, or a different ultimate threat, or a different metaphysical truth. Some of these proposals are genuine articles, others are decoys meant to obscure the truth, and perhaps there is no truth to obscure. Perhaps all of them are simultaneously real within different canons. The Gate Guardian proposal depicts SCP-001 as an enormous angelic entity wielding a flaming sword, guarding what appears to be the Garden of Eden. It will vaporize anything that approaches without permission. The Foundation contains it simply by establishing a perimeter and ensuring no one gets close enough to trigger its defensive response. This proposal suggests that biblical events were real, that the Foundation's mission extends to containing divine artifacts and limiting human interaction with the sacred. The factory proposal presents SCP-001 as a massive industrial complex that spontaneously appears in different locations, producing various anomalous objects through unknown means. The factory cannot be entered safely, as it defends itself through horrific means, transforming intruders into raw materials for its production. This proposal ties into the lore of various groups of interest who use factory-produced items, suggesting that many anomalies share a common origin. The database proposal takes a different approach entirely, suggesting that SCP-001 is the database itself, that the act of documenting anomalies creates them or stabilizes them, making the Foundation's records a reality-altering artifact in their own right. This metafictional angle appeals to readers who enjoy the blurring of lines between the fiction and its creation. When Day Breaks is perhaps the most apocalyptic SCP-001 proposal. In this scenario, the sun's light becomes deadly, transforming any organic matter it touches into a mindless, blob-like entity that actively seeks out survivors to convert them. Humanity must survive in permanent darkness, unable to ever see the sun again. The proposal includes numerous tales of survivors navigating this nightmare world, of the Foundation's attempts to protect what remains of humanity, of the slow extinction of life on Earth as the sun itself becomes the enemy. Other proposals include the spiral path, suggesting reality is a loop the Foundation is trapped within, and the Scarlet King, tying back to that entity of pure destruction we discussed earlier. Each proposal offers a different lens through which to view the Foundation's purpose and the nature of anomalous phenomena, and in the collaborative spirit of the Wiki, all of them can be considered valid within their own narrative contexts. Beyond individual SCPs, the Foundation operates within a complex ecosystem of groups of interest, organizations that possess, create, use, or oppose anomalies for their own purposes. Understanding these groups provides essential context for the broader SCP universe, as they represent different philosophies toward the anomalous. The Chaos Insurgency began as a splinter faction of the Foundation itself. In 1924, a significant portion of Foundation personnel defected, stealing numerous anomalous objects and establishing their own organization. Where the Foundation seeks to contain anomalies, the insurgency weaponizes them. They sell anomalous items on black markets, use them for mercenary operations, and actively work to destabilize the Foundation. The philosophical split centers on utility versus safety. The insurgency believes anomalies should be used to benefit humanity, or at least benefit themselves, rather than locked away. This makes them dangerous not because they're irrational, but because they're rational actors pursuing different goals with access to reality-warping weapons. The Serpent's Hand takes an even more radical position. They believe anomalies should be free, that the Foundation's containment is itself immoral, akin to imprisoning sentient beings for the crime of being different. The Serpent's Hand operates out of the Wanderer's Library, an extra-dimensional space containing every book ever written and many that haven't been. They assist anomalous entities in escaping Foundation custody, sabotage containment efforts, and generally act as adversaries to the organization's mission. Yet they're not purely villainous. Many tales portray Serpent's Hand members as genuinely principled, believing in freedom and diversity of existence, even if their methods put civilians at risk. The Global Occult Coalition represents the international community's official response to anomalous threats. Formed by various governmental and supernatural organizations, the GOC takes a more militaristic approach than the Foundation. Where the Foundation contains, the GOC destroys. They view anomalies as threats to be eliminated rather than studied and locked away. This has led to numerous conflicts with the Foundation, particularly when the GOC destroys potentially useful or harmless anomalies. One infamous incident involved the GOC destroying a peaceful reality bender, a chair that could teleport. It was completely harmless, but the GOC classified it as a threat and turned it into wood pulp. The Foundation views such actions as wasteful and potentially dangerous, as destroying anomalies without understanding them first can have unpredictable consequences. Marshall, Carter, and Dark Limited operates as a club for the ultra-rich who collect anomalies the way others collect art. They auction impossibilities to billionaires, providing discreet services for those who can afford them. Want to live forever? MC&D can acquire the necessary artifacts. Want to experience impossible pleasures? They have catalogs. The group represents the commodification of the anomalous, treating reality-warping objects as luxury goods. The Foundation maintains a complex relationship with MC&D, sometimes negotiating to acquire dangerous items before they fall into the wrong hands. Other times, raiding their facilities when containment cannot be achieved through diplomacy. Are we cool yet? Is an art collective that creates anomalous art installations, often dangerous ones. They view anomalies as the ultimate medium for artistic expression, using reality manipulation to make statements about society, consciousness, and existence. Their works have included a sculpture that causes anyone who views it to slowly turn into paint, a performance piece where the artist gradually erased herself from existence, and a gallery where the paintings watch you back. The Foundation views APSI as reckless artists who prioritize shock value over human safety, though some researchers admit their work occasionally provides valuable insights into the nature of anomalous phenomena. Dr. Wondertainment produces anomalous toys and entertainment products, often with the innocence of children in mind, though the results range from delightful to horrific. Little Misters is one of Wondertainment's product lines, a collection of anomalous children with various powers. Mr. Fish breathes underwater. Mr. Laugh can't stop laughing and makes others laugh uncontrollably. Mr. Stripes changes color. These entities are generally harmless, almost wholesome, representing a rare example of anomalies that aren't threats. But other Wondertainment products have been less benign, including toys that cause children to merge together, or games that trap players in alternate dimensions. The factory, which we mentioned briefly in the 001 proposals, produces anomalies through industrial processes, often incorporating human suffering into its products. Factory-produced items bear distinctive markings and share certain characteristics. Mass production, utilitarian design, and often disturbing implications about their creation. The factory itself remains mysterious, with conflicting report about its location, purpose, and operators. Now let us drift toward some of the more philosophical and reality-bending concepts within SCP lore, ideas that challenge not just our understanding of the anomalous, but our understanding of narrative, consciousness, and existence itself. The SCP universe has evolved to include increasingly metafictional elements, stories that acknowledge their own fictional nature and explore the implications. The concept of pataphysics within SCP lore refers to the science of narrative layers, the study of how stories within stories interact and influence each other. In this framework, our reality exists as a narrative written by beings from a higher reality, and those beings might themselves exist within an even higher narrative. SCP-3812, which we discussed earlier, is ascending through these narrative layers, becoming more real with each ascension, moving from character to something beyond. This framework allows SCP writers to explore metafictional horror, where entities can become aware of their fictional nature and potentially break through to affect us, their creators. The swan entities represent us, the writers and readers of SCP articles. In universe, they're described as higher dimensional beings who can rewrite reality through acts of narrative creation. From the perspective of Foundation researchers, we are gods with typewriters, capable of bringing entities into existence or erasing them through deletion or rewrite. This creates a fascinating dynamic where the Foundation is aware that they exist within a narrative, that their reality is maintained through collective storytelling, and that entities like SCP-3812 are attempting to break free from that narrative prison. SCP-22747 embodies a different kind of narrative threat. It's an anti-narrative, a pattern that appears in stories and then consumes them, starting with the fictional works within the story, then expanding to consume the story itself. Within the SCP universe, researchers notice that certain tales keep disappearing from their archives, that fictional works mentioned in older documents no longer exist, that entire narrative threads are being erased. SCP-2747 is eating the fiction from within, potentially threatening to consume the entire SCP universe. This concept creates genuine unease among readers, as it suggests that even the wiki itself might be under attack, that articles could disappear not because they were deleted by moderators, but because they were consumed by an entity within the fiction. Pattern screamers represent beings that exist in the void between narratives, entities that never achieved full existence but remain trapped in a state of potential being. They scream endlessly, desperate to be observed, to be written, to become real. Some interpretations suggest that pattern screamers are failed SCPs, articles that were deleted or never published, now existing as narrative ghosts haunting the spaces between stories. This adds a layer of melancholy to the metafiction, suggesting that even unwritten ideas have a kind of existence, a desperate desire to be real. Hume levels measure the strength of reality hata in a given area. Baseline reality has a Hume level of 1.0. Reality benders can locally alter Hume levels, either strengthening reality saw to make their alterations permanent or weakening it to make changes easier. Reality anchors, devices the Foundation uses to stabilize reality, function by maintaining consistent Hume levels, preventing reality benders from altering their surroundings. This concept provides a pseudo-scientific framework for understanding reality manipulation, treating consciousness and existence as measurable phenomena that can be studied and controlled. The SCP universe also explores alternate timelines and parallel realities extensively. SCP-1730, What Happened to Site-13, describes a Foundation site from an alternate timeline where everything went catastrophically wrong. The site somehow shifted into our timeline, bringing with it horrific anomalies and the traumatized remains of personnel who experienced an apocalyptic breach. Exploring this displaced site reveals a timeline where the Foundation became authoritarian, where they experimented on personnel, where their containment of reality benders led to a cascading failure that destroyed their entire world. The implication is chilling. The Foundation's mission requires such extreme measures that alternate versions have crossed ethical lines into monstrosity. SCP-5000-Y presents another alternate timeline, but from a different angle. In this timeline, the Foundation suddenly declared war on humanity, using all their contained anomalies as weapons in a systematic genocide. The story follows a lone survivor trying to understand why the organization dedicated to protecting humanity would suddenly try to exterminate it. The answer, partially revealed, suggests the Foundation discovered something about human consciousness itself, something so horrifying that eradicating humanity became the ethical choice. And the article implies that human consciousness is itself anomalous, possibly infectious, possibly evil, and that our subjective experience of being alive is actually a parasitic infection. The Foundation's attempted genocide was mercy killing on a global scale. These darker explorations of the Foundation's potential demonstrate how the collaborative nature of the Wiki allows for radical reinterpretation. The organization can simultaneously be humanity's protector and its greatest threat, depending on which canon you're exploring, which choices different versions make when faced with impossible decisions. Let us now consider some of the more specific anomalies that capture particular aspects of cosmic horror, entities and objects that reveal uncomfortable truths about reality or consciousness. These SCPs might not be as famous as 173 or 682, but they represent some of the most creative and disturbing concepts in the database. SCP-087 is a staircase that descends far deeper than should be physically possible. It's unlit, requiring anyone exploring it to bring light sources, which inexplicably fail to illuminate beyond a certain range. As you descend, you occasionally hear the crying of a child, always seeming to come from further down. And sometimes, you encounter SCP-0871, a face without a body, without features, just the suggestion of a face hovering in the darkness. Exploration logs document multiple expeditions descending thousands of steps, never finding the bottom, never finding the crying child, only experiencing increasing psychological distress and encounters with that terrible face. The stairs represent fear of the unknown, the dread of descending into darkness with no certainty of return, the horror of infinite depth. SCP-0093, the Red Sea Object, is a disk that, when held and brought near a mirror, transforms the mirror into a portal to alternate dimensions. Different holders produce different colored versions of the disk, each color leading to a different reality. The explored dimensions reveal a dead world, destroyed by religious fundamentalism and anomalous phenomena, where humanity brought about its own extinction. The exploration logs, told through recovered documents and recordings from the alternate world, slowly reveal a society that discovered some terrible truth about their gods, about the nature of reality, and in trying to save themselves, they destroyed everything. The Red Sea object serves as a window into humanity's potential futures. All of them apocalyptic, all of them cautionary tales. SCP-1730, which I mentioned earlier, describes Site-13, a massive Foundation facility from an alternate timeline where the Foundation made catastrophically wrong choices. The site contains the Thresher device, a machine meant to contain powerful reality benders by lobotomizing them, removing their consciousness while keeping their bodies alive. But something went wrong. The tortured remnants of these reality benders, their subconscious minds still active, warped the facility into a nightmare. The site became infested with entities called the Jailers, massive humanoid creatures that capture and torture Foundation personnel, and the Scuttlers, insect-like things that swarm through the corridors. Exploring Site-13 reveals logs of a Foundation that lost its way, that prioritized security over ethics so extremely that they became the monsters they sought to contain. SCP-2521 cannot be described in text or speech. Any written or spoken information about it causes it to appear and abduct the person who wrote or spoke about it. The SCP article for 2521 is written entirely in pictograms, showing rather than telling what it does. This creates a unique interaction between reader and article, forcing us to interpret symbols to understand the threat, while knowing that the Foundation itself cannot safely document this entity using normal methods. It's an elegant solution to an impossible containment challenge. How do you warn people about something you cannot describe? SCP-4999 appears only to people who are dying alone. If someone is experiencing their final moments with no one present, no family, no friends, no witnesses, 4999 appears beside them. It offers them a cigarette, sits with them, and stays until they pass. Then it disappears. It's not hostile. It doesn't cause death. It simply ensures that no one has to die completely alone. In a database filled with horrors, 4999 stands out as something almost comforting, suggesting that even in the SCP universe, even in a reality filled with monsters and gods and reality-destroying anomalies, there's still room for compassion, even if it comes from an unexplained entity in a suit. These gentler anomalies provide important tonal balance. Not every SCP is a world-ending threat. Some are just strange. SCP-9999, the tickle monster, is a blob of orange slime that makes people happy when it touches them. It's playful, friendly, and has been used therapeutically by Foundation personnel suffering from depression or PTSD. SCP-131, the iPods, are small, adorable creatures that roll around on a single wheel, resembling eyeballs. They're harmless and curious, often following personnel around sites. These anomalies remind us that the anomalous isn't inherently evil or dangerous. It's simply different from baseline reality, and that difference can be benign or even beneficial. The Foundation's relationship with sentient anomalies raises profound ethical questions that echo throughout the lore. Many SCPs are fully conscious beings, capable of thought, emotion, and suffering. SCP-191 is a young girl who was surgically altered by an unknown group, her body fused with technological components in ways that cause her constant pain. The Foundation contains her, provides medical care, but cannot reverse the modifications. Is it ethical to keep her contained? She's a victim, not a perpetrator, but the technology integrated into her body is anomalous and poorly understood. The Foundation's choice to contain rather than release her prioritizes security over her freedom, a choice that individual researchers struggle with. SCP-2241 is a man named Cameron James Treffry, who appears in security footage from locations where tragedies occurred, always positioned as though he's aware of the camera but not interacting with the events around him. Investigation reveals that Treffry existed, worked for a Foundation precursor organization, and made some kind of deal or underwent some transformation that left him scattered across time, present at disasters, but unable to interact. The Foundation contains the concept of him, suppressing information about his appearances, but cannot contain him directly because he exists only in recordings, in past moments that have already occurred. His containment is informational, not physical, raising questions about what it means to contain something, whether ideas and information can be imprisoned as effectively as flesh and metal. These edge cases, where containment becomes philosophically complex, reveal the Foundation's pragmatic approach. The organization doesn't have the luxury of perfect solutions. They work with what's possible, containing what can be contained, managing what can only be managed, and making difficult choices when no good options exist. Let us now drift into the various canons that have emerged within the SCP universe, alternate timelines and thematic collections that explore different possibilities for how the Foundation's story might unfold. These canons allow writers to collaborate on shared narratives while maintaining the flexibility that makes the wiki work. The Broken Masquerade canon explores what happens when the Foundation's secrecy fails, when anomalies become public knowledge, and humanity has to adjust to knowing that monsters are real. In this timeline, governments acknowledge the Foundation's existence, cooperating openly rather than through shadow agreements. Anomalies are discussed on news programs. People debate the rights of sentient SCPs. The Foundation struggles to maintain containment when public opinion opposes their methods. This canon explores themes of transparency versus security, asking whether the veil of normalcy is ethical if it requires lying to all of humanity about the fundamental nature of reality. The Third Law canon presents a future where anomalous science has become normalized, where companies like Prometheus Labs mass-produce reality-bending technology and people use thaumaturgic apps on their smartphones. The Foundation still exists, but operates more like a regulatory agency, ensuring that anomalous technology meets safety standards rather than locking everything away in underground bunkers. This optimistic vision suggests humanity can coexist with the anomalous, that the impossible can be understood and integrated into daily life. But it also shows the new dangers that arise when everyone has access to reality manipulation, when anomalous weapons proliferate, when the barriers that kept humanity safe dissolve. The Ad Astra per Aspera canon takes humanity to the stars, showing a Foundation that has expanded into space, containing anomalies across multiple planets and dealing with extraterrestrial threats. This canon explores xenobiology, the challenges of containment in zero gravity, and the implications of discovering that humans aren't alone in the universe. It asks whether the Foundation's mission changes when the threat comes from outside rather than from hidden corners of Earth, whether the organization's methods remain ethical when dealing with alien civilizations that have their own relationship with anomalous phenomena. The Apotheosis canon depicts humanity's ascension to godhood through anomalous means, where people begin developing reality-bending abilities en masse, where the distinction between human and anomaly collapses. The Foundation fractures in response, with some members trying to preserve baseline humanity while others embrace the transformation. This canon explores transhumanism through an anomalous lens, asking what it means to be human when consciousness itself becomes malleable, when thought can reshape matter, when the limitations that defined humanity for millennia suddenly vanish. The end of death canon, as discussed briefly earlier, presents a world where death simply stops working. No one can die. Injuries heal, but bodies continue aging. People accumulate damage over decades without the release of mortality. Society collapses under the weight of overpopulation and resource scarcity. The Foundation works desperately to understand what caused death to stop and how to restore it, while dealing with the psychological impact on personnel who watch loved ones suffer endlessly without the possibility of peace. This canon turns immortality, often portrayed as desirable, into a horror scenario where the absence of death creates suffering worse than death itself. When day breaks, that apocalyptic SCP-001 proposal has spawned its own canon of stories about survivors in the eternal dark, about the Foundation's underground facilities becoming humanity's last refuges, about the desperate search for a way to reverse the sun's transformation or escape to another planet. These tales emphasize isolation, hopelessness, and the strength required to continue existing when the world has ended. Each canon represents different writers collaborating on shared visions, building interconnected stories while still maintaining the wiki's core flexibility. No canon is more official than any other. They're all equally valid interpretations of how the Foundation's story might develop, and readers can engage with whichever resonates most strongly. The Foundation itself, as an organization, reveals its character through its internal culture, the way personnel interact, the relationships between departments, and the philosophies that guide decisions when no good choices exist. The O5 Council, also called the Overseers, consists of 13 individuals who direct Foundation policy at the highest level. Their identities are classified even from senior personnel. They vote on major decisions, authorize extreme measures, and bear the weight of knowledge about the most dangerous anomalies in containment. Some tales portray them as cold and pragmatic, willing to sacrifice anything to preserve the Foundation's mission. Others show them as deeply conflicted individuals struggling with impossible responsibilities, people who understand that every decision they make might lead to deaths they could have prevented. The Ethics Committee exists to provide oversight, ensuring the Foundation doesn't cross certain lines in pursuit of containment. But their power is limited. They can raise objections, document concerns, but the O5 Council makes final decisions. This creates tension between idealism and pragmatism, between what should be done and what must be done. Some tales depict the Ethics Committee as naive, unwilling to accept hard truths about containment. Others portray them as the Foundation's conscience, the last barrier preventing the organization from becoming the monsters they contain. Researchers form the intellectual core of the Foundation, studying anomalies to understand how they work and how to better contain them. Some become obsessed with specific SCPs, dedicating careers to understanding a single entity. Others move between projects, bringing fresh perspectives. Research can be dangerous. Studying a cognitohazard might expose you to mental contamination. Interviewing a sentient SCP might result in manipulation or attack. But researchers accept these risks because understanding anomalies is essential to containing them safely. Site directors manage individual facilities, making operational decisions about containment procedures, personnel assignments, and resource allocation. They balance competing priorities, maintaining security, supporting research, managing morale, and preparing for breaches. A good site director can prevent catastrophes through preparation and quick thinking. A bad one can get everyone killed. Mobile task forces, special operations teams trained for specific anomalous threats, represent the Foundation's tactical arm. MTF Epsilon 11, nine-tailed fox, specializes in facility security and recontainment of breached SCPs. MTF Omega 7, Pandora's box, used anomalous humanoids as field agents before the program was discontinued due to ethical concerns and security risks. MTF Tau 5 Samsara consists of cyborgs enhanced with anomalous technology, effectively immortal warriors who can be rebuilt after death. Each task force has specialized training, equipment, and protocols for dealing with specific threat types, from biological hazards to reality benders to extra-dimensional incursions. D-class personnel occupy the lowest tier of the Foundation hierarchy. They're typically described as death row inmates, or individuals from other sources, used for testing procedures that are too dangerous for researchers. D-class are considered expendable, their lives sacrificed to gather data about how anomalies affect humans. This raises profound ethical questions that various tales explore. Some stories humanize D-class personnel, showing their fear, their desire to survive, the lottery that determines who gets assigned to the most dangerous tests. Other tales reveal that D-class are treated more ethically than official documentation suggests, that the Foundation's reputation for callousness is partially a deterrent, that personnel develop relationships with D-class subjects and mourn their deaths. The truth varies by canon, by site, by individual site directors' choices. The use of amnestics represents another ethical complexity. These drugs erase memories, allowing the Foundation to maintain secrecy by making witnesses forget what they saw. But memory is integral to identity. Every time the Foundation administers amnestics, they're altering someone's mind without consent, removing experiences that shaped who they are. Class A amnestics erase the past few hours. Class B wipes the past few days or weeks. Class removes months. Larger doses can erase years or entire lifetimes. Some personnel question whether this practice is ethical, whether the Foundation has the right to reshape people's minds to maintain the veil. Others argue it's necessary, that the psychological damage from witnessing certain anomalies justifies memory alteration, that allowing civilians to retain memories of world-ending threats would cause societal collapse through panic. The Foundation maintains its own internal anomalies, objects and entities it uses to support containment operations. These Thaumiel-class SCPs are the organization's most closely guarded secrets. SCP-2000, a facility designed to repopulate Earth after an XK-class scenario, contains equipment that can clone humans and implant false memories, essentially rebooting civilization if humanity is ever extinct. The Foundation has used 2000 at least twice before, meaning our current timeline might be the third or fourth iteration of human civilization, with previous versions destroyed by anomalies we've since contained. This creates an existential horror. How do we know we're the original humanity? How many times has the Foundation rebooted us? Are our memories real? SCP-2317, that chained horror we discussed earlier, is classified as Thaumiel not because the Foundation uses it, but because its existence is so dangerous that knowledge of it is restricted. The designation serves as a warning. This information is for O5 Council members only, and even they must grapple with the psychological impact of knowing an unkillable entity will eventually break free and end reality. The Foundation's relationship with temporal anomalies creates particularly complex scenarios. SCP-1968 is a letter that causes a person who isn't mentioned in it to be retroactively erased from history, as though they never existed. SCP-507 randomly shifts between dimensions, sometimes returning with information or items from alternate realities. SCP-2003 is a preferred dimension scenario, where the Foundation in our timeline is receiving warnings from a Foundation in an alternate timeline that experienced an apocalypse, trying to prevent us from making the same mistakes. Time travel, when it appears in SCP lore, typically creates problems rather than solving them, as causality becomes unstable and attempts to fix the past often make things worse. Let us drift now through some of the locations that matter in SCP lore, the places where anomalies concentrate, where reality is thin, where the Foundation maintains its most important or most dangerous operations. These sites serve as settings for countless tales, each with its own character and history. Site 19 is perhaps the most frequently mentioned Foundation facility, serving as a general containment site for humanoid and object class anomalies. It houses dozens of SCPs, from relatively safe objects to Cater-class entities requiring constant monitoring. Site 19 has experienced multiple containment breaches, reality failures, and temporal anomalies, yet continues operating due to its strategic importance and extensive infrastructure. Personnel stationed at Site 19 develop a particular gallows humor, knowing they work above some of the most dangerous entities in containment. Area 51 exists in SCP lore not as an alien research facility, but as a Foundation site focused on extraterrestrial anomalies and aerospace threats. Its remote location and existing secrecy mythology make it ideal for containing objects that might be spotted if kept at less isolated facilities. Site ZO-1, the O5 Council's headquarters, is deliberately kept vague in documentation. Its location is unknown to most personnel. Its containment procedures are classified. The site serves as the ultimate fallback position, designed to survive even if all other Foundation operations collapse, ensuring the organization can rebuild from whatever remains. The Wanderer's Library deserves special mention as a liminal space rather than a Foundation site. Accessible through ways, passages that lead from reality into this extra-dimensional archive, the library contains every book ever written and countless that exist only in possibility. The Serpent's Hand bases operations here, protected by the library's independence from normal reality. The Foundation monitors known ways but cannot close them permanently, as the library exists partially outside causality. Some Foundation personnel have visited the library under truce conditions, researching texts that don't exist in baseline reality, finding information about anomalies that predates the Foundation itself. La Rue Macabre, a street that appears in different cities under different names, serves as a black market for anomalous items. Marshall, Carter, and Dark operate openly here. Anomalous art dealers, thaumaturgic drug traffickers, and dimensional smugglers conduct business under an informal peace agreement. The Foundation monitors LaRue, but cannot shut it down without triggering open war with dozens of groups of interest simultaneously. Instead, they observe, track transactions, and occasionally make purchases or arrests when particularly dangerous items appear for sale. 3 Portlands is a pocket dimension, an entire city existing outside normal space, accessible through passages in Portland, Oregon, Portland, Maine, and the Isle of Portland in England. The city has a thriving population of anomalous refugees, people with abilities or conditions that prevent them from living in baseline reality. The Foundation tolerates 3 Portlands because forcibly evacuating it would create more problems than it solves. Because the city serves as a pressure release valve for anomalous individuals who might otherwise become containment problems, and because agents stationed there can monitor the community for emerging threats. Backdoor Soho, a similar pocket dimension accessible from New York's Soho district, operates as an artist's haven where anomalous creators live and work. Are We Cool Yet maintains a strong presence there. The Serpent's Hand protects it. The Foundation watches from a distance, occasionally recruiting artists who prove helpful to containment efforts, occasionally raiding when something genuinely dangerous is created. These liminal spaces, places that exist between or outside baseline reality, demonstrate that the Foundation doesn't have absolute control. There are sanctuaries they tolerate, markets they monitor but cannot close, and communities they contain through observation rather than direct intervention. The organization adapts to circumstances, choosing battles carefully, recognizing that some anomalies are better managed through negotiation than force. As we drift deeper into the archives, we should consider some of the less famous but equally fascinating SCPs that capture specific aspects of the anomalous experience, objects and entities that might not have achieved meme status, but represent creative highlights of the collaborative project. SCP-2521 we mentioned earlier, the entity you cannot describe in text or speech. Its article, written entirely in pictograms, stands as one of the most creative formatting choices in the database. The story behind its containment is tragic. Countless personnel disappeared trying to document it before someone realized the pattern and developed the pictographic system. SCP-11762, Here Be Dragons, is a cardboard box that once produced origami dragons from a fantasy dimension called Fantasy. The dragons were friendly, imaginative, delightful. Foundation researchers developed relationships with them. But something went wrong in Fantasy. Some catastrophe the dragons couldn't explain. The messages coming through the box became desperate. Here be dragons. Help them. We're dying. Eventually, the dragons stopped coming. The final message read, Here were dragons. The box is now classified as neutralized, no longer anomalous, just an empty cardboard box that once connected to a magical world that no longer exists. The article is heartbreaking, suggesting that not all anomalies are threats, that some are precious, and that containment can't always prevent tragedy. SCP-1981, that Reagan tape we touched on earlier, deserves fuller exploration. It's a video cassette showing Ronald Reagan giving his evil empire speech, except he describes his own torture in graphic detail, wounds appearing on his body as he speaks, screaming in agony while still delivering the speech. Each viewing shows a different variation, sometimes with different tortures, occasionally with political references that couldn't have existed when the tape was made, as though the Reagan on the tape can see the future from his position in the past. The tape suggests something is torturing a version of Reagan outside normal time, forcing him to experience and describe endless suffering while addressing the nation. SCP-2845, the Deer, is a reality bender of immense power contained through an elaborate ritual that must be performed continuously. The ritual involves prayer, sacrifice, and maintaining specific narrative patterns that convince the entity it's a deity being properly worshipped. If the ritual is interrupted, 2845 will recognize that it's being contained rather than worshipped and will break free, likely destroying reality in the process. The containment procedures read like religious texts because they are religious texts, a faith manufactured by the Foundation to imprison a god that might not have been a god before they started treating it like one. SCP-3008 is an IKEA store that's infinitely large inside, far bigger than its external structure. People enter shopping for furniture and become lost in endless showrooms. The store contains a population of thousands of people who entered over the years and couldn't find the exit. They've built a society inside, constructing shelters from IKEA furniture, gathering food from the cafe when they can reach it. During the day, the store is relatively safe, but at night, the staff emerge, faceless humanoids in IKEA uniforms who attack anyone they find, saying, "The store is now closed. Please exit the building," as they pursue victims through the infinite aisles. It's mundane horror, transforming a common shopping experience into an inescapable nightmare dimension. SCP-5000, why, which we've touched on, deserves deeper consideration. The article takes the form of an after-action report analyzing an anomalous suit recovered from an alternate timeline. In that timeline, the Foundation declared war on humanity, using every SCP in containment as a weapon. The suit's previous wearer, a Foundation operative who defected, left logs trying to understand why the organization would do this. The final revelation suggests the Foundation discovered that consciousness itself is anomalous, that what we experience as subjective experience, as qualia, as the feeling of being alive, is actually a parasitic entity infecting all humanity. The Foundation tried to eradicate humanity not out of malice but mercy, trying to kill the parasite by killing its hosts. The article leaves ambiguous whether they were right, whether consciousness is truly a parasitic infection, or whether they misunderstood what they discovered. The suit, which blocks the wearer from the entity in human consciousness, allowed its wearer to survive the Foundation's genocide by making them invisible to the organization's targeting systems, which tracked the entity rather than individual humans. These articles demonstrate the creative range of SCP writing, from heartbreak to body horror to philosophical terror to mundane situations turned nightmarish. The collaborative nature of the wiki allows writers to explore different tones and themes while maintaining the shared framework of Foundation documentation. We should consider, too, the way SCP articles have evolved over the wiki's history. Early entries like 173 were short, focused on a single anomalous property and basic containment. As writers became more ambitious, articles grew longer, incorporating multiple addenda, interview logs, exploration reports, and cross-references to other SCPs. The database became increasingly interconnected, with articles referencing each other, building shared storylines, creating continuities within the flexible canon structure. Some modern SCPs are multimedia experiences. SCP-2316, Field Trip, describes a lake filled with bodies that you recognize, people you know, though you've never seen them before. The article includes an image of the lake, and throughout the text, it periodically reminds you do not recognize the bodies in the water. A mimetic defense against the compulsion to enter the lake to save the people you recognize. Reading the article creates an uncomfortable feeling. The text insisting you don't recognize people, the image tricks your pattern. Recognition systems into thinking you know. SCP-5999 involves a website that displays random SCP articles with subtle changes, inserting a recurring character into unrelated entries. The more you read, the more you notice this character appearing in backgrounds, in lists of personnel, in tangential mention. The SCP suggests reality itself is being edited, history rewritten to include someone who wasn't there before. And the Foundation is powerless to stop it, because by the time they notice the changes, the altered version has become true. These experimental formats push the boundaries of what an SCP article can be, using the medium itself as part of the horror. making readers participate in the anomaly rather than just reading about it. As we approach the conclusion of this journey through SCP lore, it's worth reflecting on what makes this collaborative project so enduringly popular. The Foundation provides a framework that anyone can contribute to, a shared universe without a single controlling author, where contradictions are features rather than bugs, where multiple canons can coexist. The clinical documentation style creates emotional distance that makes the horror more effective, forcing readers to imagine the terrible details implied by sterile descriptions. The Foundation itself serves as an audience surrogate, asking the questions we would ask, studying anomalies with scientific rigor while grappling with the limitations of understanding things that break the rules of reality. The Wiki's quality control system, where the community votes on articles and deletes those that don't meet standards, ensures a certain baseline quality while allowing experimental pieces to succeed if they're well executed. Writers must balance creativity with consistency, adding to the shared lore without contradicting established elements unless they're deliberately exploring alternate timelines. The SCP universe has expanded far beyond the Wiki itself. There are YouTube channels dedicated to reading SCP articles aloud or analyzing their implications. Artists create visual interpretations of entities. Game developers create SCP-based games, from horror experiences to strategy simulations. The Creative Commons licensing allows this proliferation, enabling fans to create derivative works without legal barriers. This has created a positive feedback loop where each new interpretation brings more people to the original wiki, where some become contributors themselves, adding new SCPs and tales that future creators will adapt. The Foundation's motto, secure, contain, protect, has become iconic, but each word carries weight. Secure means finding anomalies before they cause harm, maintaining surveillance networks, embedding agents in governments and media. Contain means developing procedures that prevent anomalies from affecting baseline reality, whether through physical barriers, information suppression, or more creative solutions tailored to specific threats. Protect means safeguarding humanity from both the anomalies themselves and the knowledge of their existence, maintaining the veil of normalcy that allows people to live without constant existential dread. But the motto also reveals the Foundation's limitations. They can secure and contain, but they can't truly protect humanity from everything. Some anomalies are uncontainable. Some threats are inevitable. Some choices require sacrificing individuals to save populations, crossing ethical lines in the name of the greater good. The Foundation persists despite these limitations because the alternative, allowing anomalies to run free, would be catastrophically worse. As we drift toward the end of this exploration, consider the variety of ways the SCP universe answers the question, what if impossible things were real? Different entries explore different aspects of this premise. Some focus on horror, on things that hunt and kill. Others examine wonder, on anomalies that expand human potential or reveal beautiful truths. Some explore tragedy, on good intentions creating disasters. Others analyze comedy, finding humor in bureaucracy, trying to contain the absurd. The framework accommodates all these tones because reality itself contains multitudes, because the impossible, if it existed, would be as varied as the possible. The SCP Foundation exists in the gaps of our world, in the spaces between what we know and what we fear might be true. It suggests that there are organizations working behind the scenes, that the strange stories we hear might be echoes of contained anomalies, that reality is more fragile and more strange than we're allowed to know. For readers, this creates a sense of immersion, the feeling that these documents could be real, that somewhere there might actually be facilities housing impossible things, that the Foundation might be out there, protecting us from horrors we'll never know existed. This journey has taken us from the Wiki's origins through cosmic entities and ancient civilizations, through specific SCPs and the groups that oppose or support the Foundation, through philosophical concepts and alternate timelines, through the organization's internal culture and the locations where anomalies concentrate. We've explored how the collaborative nature of the project allows for creative freedom while maintaining thematic consistency, how the documentation format creates effective horror through clinical distance, and how the community ensures quality while encouraging experimentation. Whether you've stayed with this narrative until now or drifted into sleep somewhere along the way, you've experienced a glimpse of the vast, interconnected tapestry that is SCP lore. There are thousands more articles to discover, countless tales expanding on the entities mentioned here. New SCPs added regularly by writers continuing the collaborative project. The Foundation's archives are inexhaustible because they're constantly growing, because the impossible can be imagined in infinite variations, because horror and wonder are endless. As you settle into rest, or as you contemplate exploring the Wiki yourself, remember that the SCP Foundation represents something unique in creative fiction. A mythology built by a community, a horror universe that belongs to everyone and no one, a framework flexible enough to accommodate countless visions while maintaining coherent identity. It's a testament to collaborative creativity, to the power of shared storytelling, to humanity's endless fascination with the question, what if? The anomalies wait in their cells, contained but never truly understood, secured but never completely safe, studied by personnel who know they're maintaining a fiction of control over forces that could shatter reality. And perhaps that's the deepest horror the SCP universe offers, the knowledge that containment is always temporary, that the veil of normalcy is tissue-thin, that the Foundation's success is measured not in victories, but in the disasters that haven't happened yet. Sleep well, knowing that in the world of the SCP Foundation, somewhere in the darkness, someone is watching the things that watch us back, containing the uncontainable, protecting humanity from the truth of its own fragility. The archives remain, vast and growing, waiting for those curious enough to explore them, brave enough to confront what they contain, or simply seeking stories to carry them gently into dreams. The Foundation endures, the anomalies persist, and in the spaces between, countless stories wait to be told.